Well, joining me now is Troy Miller, the president and CEO of National Religious Broadcasters. Troy, what is the significance of James Dobson's ministry?
Oh, I'm not sure I can even put that into words. As Franklin Graham said, this is 5 decades of ministry. I'm not sure that there's anybody who's had more impact on families in this country than James Dobson has, not only through his radio programs, his media, but his books. I mean, when my wife and I were in the 80s raising our kids in the 80s and 90s, The Strong-Willed Child, that book was referenced a lot in our home.
Yeah, I was one of those strong-willed children, and my parents actually read his stuff. I wasn't too appreciative back when I was a child, but now it's a different story. It's interesting, Troy, because we really have lost 2 great men. Of course, you have John MacArthur, who passed recently, and now James Dobson. And people always wonder who is going to be there to pick up the baton and keep sharing and making an impact at that level in the culture.
Yeah, and look, God's always raised people up, and so we have a number of pastors that are, stepping up to God's calling to media today and calling to influence the family and influence the culture. And they're doing that, as you said, on the bedrock of Christianity, but on the shoulders of giants like James Dobson and Dr. MacArthur, Dr. Kennedy. We lost Pat Robertson recently, so we have a change in that generation. But look, I want to say something about your last segment. We're also seeing a lot of younger generation, Gen Z and the millennials, who are really stepping up and rejecting the messages of the culture today. And they're going back to those family fundamentals that Dr. Dobson taught us all. And that is so encouraging.
I spoke with President Trump earlier today, and we had a conversation about faith. Here's what he had to say.
They were the backbone of this country, and they still are, but they were dwindling. But I'm telling you, they're coming back. Religion's coming back. And religion brings our country together.
Do you agree with the president there that we are seeing a resurgence?
I couldn't agree with the president more that we're not only seeing a resurgence. Look, we've seen a number of indications. Bible sales over the last year are up. Young men going to church is up. People returning to church is up. Even our own recent Barna study showed that 68% of Gen Zers interact with some form of Christian media on a regular basis. Wow. And 58% of millennials. Look, Todd, 60% of the country as a whole interacts with some form of Christian media on a regular basis. So, yeah, I think there's a real resurgence into faith. There's been a time where people were, as the president said, they were pushed aside, and now his administration has really opened up that freedom.
Troy, we have to leave it there. Sorry for the abbreviated conversation. We'll get you back on to talk more. But